Welcome to Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning for Monday, November 11th. I'm your host, Tom Orr. The Northwestern game is in 5 days. The game against Michigan in 19 days. Buckeyes heading into that Northwestern game with just one loss on the season, thanks to a 45-0 win over Purdue on Saturday. Buckeyes, not the most exciting game in the history of Ohio State football, but they handled their business, something they definitely deserve credit for, and now they've got to handle their business again this weekend in Wrigley Field against the Northwestern Wildcats. Before we turn the page to that Northwestern game, I'm going to be talking just a little bit more about that win over Purdue. Going to be letting you hear directly from Ohio State head coach Ryan Day some of his thoughts after the game. Let's start with the punt block. You're going to be hearing a couple things about that punt block. That was a big play, a very dynamic play by the Ohio State special teams. It really kind of got the game kickstarted. So what went into that punt block, and why was that such a big play for the Buckeyes?
Yeah, there was a challenge set out in special teams. We, went back and changed some stuff on personnel. We felt like we had something on, in the punt block. We put Cade and Mitch off the edge there, which was, we felt like a good matchup for us in that moment, put a lot of work into it. But then those guys have to go execute it, and they did. And we felt like, especially in the first half of this game, coming off the emotional win of last week, that getting a special teams either steal a possession or a big play could jumpstart us in the game. I thought it did.
Besides the special teams, another group that stood out was the Ohio State defensive ends. It was a big day for them. Obviously, the big play was the forced fumble by JT Tuimoloau, the scoop and score touchdown by Jack Sawyer. But overall, why was that such a big day for the Ohio State defensive ends?
Yeah, I thought JT and Jack were both very disruptive, and certainly the forced fumble and scoop and score was the epitome of that in this game. But like you said, it starts up front, and I think Tyleik was available. He could have played, but we felt like we were going to hold him unless we really needed him. Plan on getting him back for next week, full go. But it was good to see some other guys step up and have to get in there and play. And it's everybody across the board. I thought the DBs were solid in coverage. I only think they had I don't know how many, 9 completions. So anytime that happens, 3 sacks, you get in the backfield, it makes a big difference.
Ryan Day has talked about overhauling that defense a little bit in the wake of that loss to Oregon a couple weeks ago. What kind of changes did they really make, though?
Yeah, I think to the naked eye, there's it's not like we redid the whole thing, but when you start from scratch, there's just certain things that you either make assumptions on, or you have to make sure that you're putting the right guys in the right place, and all it takes is a little bit to be off, and when you add these little things up over time, they can make a big difference. And I think the guys are understanding that. I think they know how they can go win a game, but then we have to have the change-ups, somewhere along the game to keep people off balance. And so without getting too technical on it, I think that, we have the right people in the right spots. I think we're getting lined up faster and getting set, getting our cleats in the ground and being more aggressive on the perimeter.
One thing that changed on the defensive line on Saturday was it was the first career start for freshman Edrick Houston. He started his career as a defensive end, and they moved him into that 3-tech on the interior of the defensive line, and he seems like he is finding himself very much at home there. What went into that being his first career start on Saturday?
I have to watch the film and see. He's really flashed for us, making the move from defensive end into 3 technique, and he has a lot of ability. He is active, and he's young. So he's going to have to continue to learn. He's going to make plays. He's going to make some mistakes, and he's got to grow up quickly because we need him. But I think his future is very, very bright here at Ohio State. I think he can be a very, very good player, and I think he could be a really dynamic 3 technique for us.
One thing that you'll sort of notice going week to week is every once in a while you'll have a guy who normally makes a ton of big plays for Ohio State have kind of a quiet week. Emeka Egbuka, he had only 1 catch. Now the catch went for a touchdown, but it was still only 1 catch on the day. Travion Henderson, he made a bunch of really big plays. Only 6 carries, 3 catches on the day. Why is that? Why are certain guys not getting as many touches as you might normally expect? Is that sort of a product of the slower tempo, fewer snaps, all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, there's a lot of reasons to go no huddle. There's a lot of reasons to huddle. And when we're huddling, we're not getting as many plays. We're getting, we ended up with 66 plays, and then, our starters are pretty much out there in the fourth quarter. So there's just not as many plays as there used to be. So a big part of this season is understanding that, the touches and the numbers aren't always going to be as high as maybe in the past. So guys like Emeka and Carnell, they understand that, and it's not always easy. You want to have an impact on the game, but their time is coming. These big games are coming. As we continue to move through November, and we're going to need them to play at a high level. But we're looking for that combination, obviously, of being explosive on the perimeter, downfield, and then obviously in the run game. And we need everybody involved with it. And a big part of that is being unselfish. It's a big part of when we go into November, we have to have an unselfish offense and defense. But when you're on offense, there's only one football, and we got to do everything we can to win the game. And good to see Emeka get that touchdown. But here's a guy who certainly he wants more touches. Any receiver does, but he's not a guy that is going to be selfish and make it about him. He knows the bigger picture on this. He's a captain, one of the best receivers in the history of Ohio State football, and I know the fans appreciate who he is.
One player who made a big impact on the Ohio State win, 45-0 over Purdue, was quarterback Will Howard. He finished 21 for 26 for 260 yards, 3 touchdowns, plus another one on the ground, no turnovers. Again, this is not an absolute Heisman-winning game, but it was just very efficient throughout. Is this the kind of day that they need from Will Howard?
He made some nice throws today. He took care of the football. We did have the one sack that we'd like to throw away there, but then he came right back and made 2 nice throws to get us back into it, which was huge. I thought the second and long throw to Jeremiah was great, and then obviously the third down they came with 0 pressure. I think Trey did a great job of picking it up, and then he found his hot answer right there. So those are the things that are important. But yeah, we're going to go back on the film and figure out the things that we got to continue to clean up and get better at across the board. It wasn't all clean today. It wasn't. But I thought guys played hard. And again, good to see us respond coming off an emotional win. You watch it all across college football. We've been a part of that too, where you come off an emotional win like that and you have a letdown going into the game. We're in November now. Like every single snap matters. Every play matters. And that being said, I think some guys took that opportunity in the second half, some young players, to use those snaps as an opportunity to make a name for themselves, because we're going to need depth as we continue to go through November. We've already seen that. So, good to see us respond coming off an emotional win last week.
Now back to that blocked punt. One of the changes they made was Caden Curry and Mitchell Melton became part of the punt rushers. So what did they like about what they saw during the week that led them to make that change?
Yeah, we like the matchup with those guys on the shield. When you look at the shield, they were a little bit smaller body types. We felt like we'd get them to move their feet, that we had a chance to go after it. We thought both Caden and Mitch, do that for a living. They can rush the passer, and then they slithered their way through the shield, and at the very least put pressure on it. But we felt like that was a good matchup with those bigger body types on the shield, and so. Usually we have smaller guys that are on punt return, but we felt this was the good matchup. We had been working on it for a couple of weeks, and it was good to see it hit early in the game.
We've talked on some recent shows about the fact that the special teams have kind of just sort of been there. They haven't made a really big dynamic play in quite a while. And you've seen over the last few years that other teams have been able to use special teams to steal a possession. Oregon with that onside kick, that surprise onside kick against the Buckeyes in Eugene a couple weeks ago. Sometimes it's a blocked punt. That just whatever. One of those kind of plays can really swing a game. So has that sort of been an emphasis for them in the last couple of weeks?
Yeah, and we put a lot of work into it. I mean, a lot of work. So, we need to start seeing results. So we did make a few adjustments. I think you saw Travion back there at kickoff return. We didn't quite get what we wanted there. We've used, Caleb and Brandon back there at return. So we moved we saw a couple of guys run down a little bit different on kickoff. Denzel was a gunner for us, or a jammer for us today. So, we're moving some pieces around to try to put our best guys out there on special teams, because we work at it. And maybe we haven't always had as many opportunities. Just, like you've seen last few weeks, you've seen a lot of punts. We haven't really had an opportunity to return them, put a lot of work into it. But yeah, it was, Rob, kind of organizes everything, but Brian Hartline's in charge of the punt return and punt block. So good to see them, make a difference in this game and change the game. It was something we were really hammering this week. We felt like we had something there, but you got to go do it. You got to go put it on the field. So it's good for those guys, to get that done.
Talked earlier about some of the changes that have happened on defense and some of the shuffling. They definitely did a lot of mixing and matching of personnel on Saturday against Purdue, as well as some different looks on the defensive line, sometimes some 3 down instead of 4 down. What kind of a luxury is that to be able to sort of shuffle those guys and make those kind of tweaks during a game?
Yeah, and when Tyleek wasn't available, we felt like we wanted to try some different things and look at some different packages. We'll keep building on it and evaluate it and see what worked, what didn't. But we felt like this was a good opportunity to go, try some of that stuff, some things that Jim's done in his past, and we'll keep looking at it and see if it fits.
Now, it is not as easy as just snapping your fingers and saying, okay, now you're going to go with a 3 down defensive line instead of a 4 down when you've played 4 down for pretty much most of the last several seasons. So how much does it help to have a group of veteran guys like they have in that defensive line room and really all around the defense to be able to try things like that when you're just sort of in the middle of the season?
Yeah, it could be, a real weapon for us. And like you said, it's not easy to experiment, when you're in certain games, but we felt like it's something that we had done previously with Mitch. We had done it previously with CJ and with the guys. And so even going a year back, they at least had some recall on it and film that we could watch to get better at. And there's a lot more that we can build on from there. And so, again, it's got to make sense. It's got to fit in the right spot. But, we felt like it gives us a little bit of a different wrinkle.
One more now on the punt block and just how big that was in terms of really getting things going at the start of that game for the Buckeyes.
I think the first thing was coming off of last week on emotional win, how are we going to respond? Are we just going to kind of flop around in the first half and then it gets into the fourth quarter, like maybe happened a couple weeks ago? Or are we going to come out and be aggressive early and establish a line of scrimmage and, get a turnover? So that was good. It also is good when you emphasize making a difference in special teams. You heard me talk about that this week. I think somebody asked me in the press conference, and I agreed with them. It wasn't a plus for us, and so that was the challenge. And so to get that punt block is good. It's good for the momentum. Meetings will be sharper, walkthroughs will be sharper, practice will be sharper when you see the impact it can have on a game.
And finally, ho-hum, another record-breaking performance by Jeremiah Smith, true freshman wide receiver for Ohio State. 6 catches, 87 yards, and a touchdown. That touchdown gave him 9 on the season, breaking Chris Carter's old Ohio State freshman record of 8 receiving touchdowns as a true freshman. My goodness, is there anything Jeremiah Smith can't do?
You guys have seen it, and now he's going to have to play his best because he's got a lot of it on film, and we're in November now, and so all those matchups are going to matter. But he's getting stronger. He's getting more experienced. He's understanding of coverages and different things, and so we're gonna need everybody though. But great to see him, break a record.
The Buckeyes handled their business over the weekend, but there were a bunch of teams at the top of the polls that did not. So long, Georgia Bulldogs. We'll be seeing you a little earlier in the college football playoff rankings reveal on Tuesday as they reveal those teams from the bottom of the poll to the top. Georgia will probably take a little bit of a tumble. Miami will probably take a little bit of a tumble. Buckeyes should be right there at the top again. We'll have plenty of coverage of that coming up this week, as well as plenty of coverage previewing the Buckeyes' historic matchup in Wrigley Field coming up this weekend. A lot of fun stuff to talk about around Ohio State football and college football in general. And a great place to do all that will be at BuckeyeHuddle.com. That's where Tony, Kevin, and I cover the team. Mark covers recruiting. Got our whole team of X's and O's gurus there to make you a smarter football fan. That is all at BuckeyeHuddle.com. Right now, your first month there, just $4.99. Get access to our whole team of insiders, all that great content, and get access to it through the most important month of the college football season. That first month will now get you through the Michigan game, through the Indiana game, through the Big Ten championship game, and yes, Selection Sunday for the college football playoff. Going to be a lot of great stuff to talk about. We would love to talk about it all with you at BuckeyeHuddle.com. That will do it for today. Thank you guys all for joining us. Have a great day. We'll talk to you tomorrow.